The great crystal gates of the Luthari Palace opened with a sound like music. Every being in the grand hall turned their shining eyes toward the one who entered, a stranger, a creature none had ever seen before. He was human. Captain Elias Ward walked forward slowly, every step echoing through the chamber of light. His uniform was torn from battle, his face pale and tired, but his eyes, sharp, clear, and unyielding, met the stares of the alien court without fear. He looked small among them, fragile even, but there was something in his posture that made even the proudest guard straighten in respect. The Luthari were a race of beauty and light. Their skin shimmered softly, and their long silver hair reflected the glow of the palace walls. Each movement of theirs was graceful, each word like a note in a song. To them, the human looked rough, scarred, and strange, a creature from a primitive world. At the end of the hall sat the Empress Serath, tall and radiant, her eyes as sharp as polished glass. Beside her stood her youngest daughter, Princess Elira. She was quiet, her silver eyes wide with curiosity. When Elias stopped before the throne, the Empress spoke, her voice calm and cool like distant stars. "You are the one they found in the wreckage," she said. "The last human from the destroyed fleet." Elias nodded once. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Empress's gaze lingered on him, studying his scars, the dirt on his uniform, the tired set of his jaw. "Your kind brought war across half the stars," she said softly. "And now you come here to my homeworld. Why should I not have you executed?" A hush fell over the hall. Even the lights dimmed slightly, as if the palace itself held its breath. Elias raised his head. His voice was calm, but it carried pain, pride, and something deeper. "Because I didn't come to fight," he said. "I came to survive. And to ask, why does everyone in this galaxy only know war?" The court murmured in surprise. No one had spoken to the Empress that way before. Not with defiance, not with truth. Elira, standing beside her mother, felt something stir in her chest. She looked at the human, trying to understand the strange emotion that came with his words. There was sadness in his eyes, but also strength, the kind that didn't come from power but from loss. Later, in the observation chamber where he was kept, Elias sat alone behind a transparent barrier. The stars outside shimmered against the glass, reflecting in his eyes like tiny memories. He had lost everything, his ship, his crew, his world, and yet he did not cry. When the door opened, he turned, and there she was. The princess herself. Elira stepped inside quietly, her hands clasped before her. She had never seen a being like him before. His body was fragile compared to her kind, but there was something unbreakable in his gaze. "Human," she said softly. "What do you call yourself?" He stood up, respectful but not afraid. "Elias Ward, captain of the Terran fleet." She tilted her head slightly. "You are far from your fleet now." He gave a small, tired smile. "There's no fleet left. Just me." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she asked, "Do humans always fight?" Elias looked out at the stars. "No," he said. "We fight because we have to. But what we really live for is peace, for home. For someone to come back to." Those words stayed with her long after she left the room. That night, Elira sat in her chamber, unable to sleep. She thought about the human, about his calm defiance, his broken uniform, his strange sadness. In her entire life, she had been surrounded by perfection, beautiful, shining, flawless. But never real in the human. He was real. The next day, she went to see him again. Day after day, she returned, sometimes with questions, sometimes just to listen. Elias told her about Earth, blue skies, oceans that never ended, forests that whispered with life. He told her about rain, how it fell soft and cold on human skin, how it smelled like renewal. Elira listened with wonder. Her eyes would light up whenever he spoke of things she had never imagined. In a palace made of crystal and gold, she had never seen something so beautiful as the way a human spoke about home. She began to smile more. She began to dream. And though neither of them said it aloud, both knew something had begun between them. Something quiet, impossible, and powerful enough to change the stars themselves. Days passed in the Luthari Palace, yet Elias Ward remained a mystery to everyone except Princess Elira. She visited him often, slipping past guards and courtiers with ease, drawn by something she could not name. She had learned about humans from books, from travelers, from historians, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of Elias. He was not just flesh and bone. He was hope, courage, and kindness wrapped in a fragile body. "Why do you smile when everything is broken?" she asked one afternoon, her silver eyes wide with curiosity. Elias looked at her and gave a small, tired smile. "Because even in the darkest times we try. Even when everything is gone, we keep going, humans. We survive because hope is stronger than fear." Elira felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never heard anyone speak like that. Not in the grand halls of the court, not from her teachers, not even from her mother, the Empress. And yet here was this human, a stranger, a survivor, a creature the galaxy deemed weak, teaching her something her world had forgotten. Courage was not in power, but in heart. Her visits did not go unnoticed. Courtiers whispered. The Empress's advisors frowned. "Your Highness," one said, "why do you waste your time with a human? He is fragile. He is dangerous. He is nothing compared to us." Elira did not answer. She could not. Because every time she looked at him, she saw strength. Not the kind forged in weapons or conquest, but the kind forged in survival and empathy. One evening, Elira's mother herself came to the observation hall. Empress Serath's eyes were sharp, her posture regal. "Elira," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you should stop seeing him. This human, he is not one of us. He brings danger. He brings chaos. You must remember who you are." The princess met her mother's gaze. "I know who I am," she said softly, "but I also know what I feel." Serath's eyes narrowed. "Feelings are irrelevant to duty, child. We are Luthari. We obey law, tradition, honor." Elira took a deep breath. "And yet he is the first being who has ever shown me truth, not power, not glory, not words to impress, just truth." The Empress's lips pressed together. She had never seen her daughter speak with such defiance. "You risk everything for a human?" "Yes," Elira said. Her voice was steady now, her silver eyes shining. "Because he has risked everything for me. Even his life." Emotions twisted inside the Empress. She had seen many humans in her long life. Most had died with fear in their eyes. This one had walked into the heart of an empire and met her, unafraid, unyielding, alive. And now her daughter dared to choose him. Days later, the Vrax Dominion sent word of an attack on the outer colonies. Panic rippled through the palace. War had always been a shadow over the Luthari, but this time it was closer, louder, impossible to ignore. Elias requested permission to aid in the defense. The Empress's advisors argued loudly. "He is human. He will die. He cannot fight alongside our soldiers." Elira stepped forward. "He can," she said. "He knows war. He has survived it, and he will fight for us." The council stared at her in shock. She did not falter. She met her mother's eyes and added, "He is not weak. He is strong in ways none of you can understand." The Empress fell silent. For the first time in decades, she did not command. She only observed. And in that silence, the princess's words hung in the air like a new star rising. Bright, defiant, undeniable. Elias, waiting in his quarters, could feel the tension even through the barriers that separated him from the princess. He did not know if he would be allowed to fight. He did not know if he would survive the coming battle, but he knew one thing. Wherever he went, whatever happened, he would protect her. Not because she was a princess, not because of duty, but because she had seen him as he was, human, flawed, and yet capable of great courage. And Elira, she had chosen to see him too. The first spark of rebellion, against tradition, against expectation, against a galaxy that had never valued humans, had begun. And it started with a simple truth. Sometimes the strongest hearts are not the ones born into power, but the ones that fight to survive. The sky above the Luthari capital burned with light. Vrax warships cut through the stars like jagged blades, their weapons firing streams of destructive energy. The crystal towers of the city shimmered under the blasts, and alarms echoed through every hall of the palace. Inside, the court scrambled. Guards ran, shouting orders. Scholars and advisors huddled in panic. And in the observation hall, Elias Ward stood calm but alert, his hands clenched instinctively around the rail, ready to act. Princess Elira ran toward him, her hair glowing silver under the emergency lights.
"Elias, they are attacking."
"You must help." He met her eyes. "Stay close to me. I won't let them touch you. Her heart skipped. No one had ever spoken to her like that, with certainty, with protection, without fear. He was just human. Yet in that moment he seemed larger than the tallest Luthari warriors, stronger than any blade or shield. The first explosion shook the palace, sending glass and crystal shards raining down. Guards shouted and some collapsed under the chaos. But Elias didn't hesitate. He ran into the corridors, searching for the source of the danger. Elira followed, struggling to keep up. Around them, the palace was crumbling. Doors were torn from their hinges. Sparks flew from broken circuits. The once perfect walls were fractured, and the sound of roaring flames filled the air. Then she saw him. A heavy beam had fallen across a passageway, trapping one of the junior guards. Elias lifted it without hesitation. His arms shook, his muscles straining, but he lifted the beam enough for the guard to crawl free. "Go," he shouted. "Get out of here!" The princess felt a pang of fear and admiration all at once. How could a human carry such weight, move so fast, survive in a world that seemed built to crush him? And yet he moved like he belonged. As they advanced, a larger crash echoed nearby. Part of the ceiling collapsed and debris fell toward Elira. Without thinking, Elias threw himself over her, shielding her body with his own. Pain shot through his side. He gritted his teeth but did not cry out. "Elias!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. He looked at her, and despite the dust and blood, he smiled. "I told you. Humans survive." The Empress's voice echoed through the halls. "Princess, step back. You must not risk yourself for him." But Elira could not step back. She could only watch as he continued to fight against the chaos, moving through falling debris, lifting rubble, carrying the injured, protecting those who could not protect themselves. Finally, when the immediate danger passed, Elias slumped against a fractured wall. His uniform was torn, his hands bleeding. But his eyes found hers. "Are you safe?" he asked, his voice low and strained. She ran to him, grasping his arm. Yes, because of you." He shook his head, smiling faintly. "It doesn't matter if I survive. All that matters is that you do." Tears filled her silver eyes. No one had ever risked their life for her like that. Not her tutors, not her bodyguards, not even the counselors who claimed to protect her. Only this human, fragile, broken, exhausted, had placed her safety above his own. The court arrived shortly after, moving through the wreckage with formal duty and shocked eyes. They had seen enough to understand what the princess already knew. This human was different. Empress Serath approached, her expression unreadable. She saw Elias leaning against the wall, bloodied and bruised. She saw the way the princess clutched him, the way her silver eyes shone with fear and relief. And she realized humans were not weak. Elias looked up at her. His chest heaved. "I only do what is right," he said simply. The Empress's eyes narrowed. He was no soldier of her empire, no knight in shining armor. He was human. Yet the courage he showed, the selflessness, it rivaled any Luthari she had ever known. Elira helped him to his feet. "See," she whispered to her mother. "This is what I meant. He is strong in ways you cannot imagine." For a long moment, Serath did not speak. Then quietly she said, "Perhaps strength comes in more forms than I believed." Elias glanced at her, unsure if she meant him. But Elira squeezed his hand, and in that small gesture he understood. He had earned her trust. He had earned her heart. And maybe in time he could earn the acceptance of an entire empire. And as the flames outside reflected in the broken crystal walls, the princess and the human stood together. One fragile, one alien, one survivor, one royal. Yet united by courage and loyalty, facing a galaxy that would never look at humans the same way again. The aftermath of the Vrax attack left the palace in ruin. Crystal walls were fractured, corridors scorched, and the air still smelled of smoke and ozone. Courtiers whispered among themselves, fear and awe mixing in equal measure. Some praised the princess for surviving. Others were too shocked to speak, stunned that a human had survived and protected the royal family in ways no Luthari had dared. Elias Ward sat quietly in the infirmary, his wounds being treated by Luthari medics. Blood stained his uniform and bruises darkened his pale skin, but his eyes remained calm. He did not complain. He did not ask for comfort. The human simply endured, as he always had. Princess Elira visited him as soon as she could. She found him sitting upright, his back straight despite the pain. She knelt beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the fractured lights of the infirmary. "You shouldn't have done so much," she said softly. "They could have killed you." He shook his head. "If I had died, you would have suffered. That matters more than my life." Elira's hand trembled as she placed it on his. You are different from anyone I have ever met. Not just human, but brave, kind, and fearless." He gave a faint smile. "I do what I must. That's all humans do. We keep moving forward no matter what." Their quiet moment was broken by a sharp voice. The Empress entered, her expression grave. Courtiers bowed immediately, but her eyes were on Elias. "You have caused a stir in my court," Sarath said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You acted without permission, endangered yourself, and interfered in palace matters. Do you understand the severity of this?" Elias rose slowly, meeting her gaze. "I understand, Your Majesty, and I accept any consequence for my actions, but I would do it again in a heartbeat." The Empress studied him for a long moment. There was defiance in his tone, yet there was no disrespect. He was honest, humble, and unwavering. The Luthari were accustomed to power, status, and obedience. He offered none of these. He offered truth. The council convened immediately. Words like treachery and dangerous influence filled the air. Some advisors demanded he be imprisoned. Others whispered that such courage might be rewarded. Elira stood before them all, her small frame quivering but her voice clear. "He saved me," she said. "He saved the palace. And he did it without seeking reward, without asking for glory. Isn't that what we value?" Murmurs rippled through the council. None had expected the princess to speak so boldly. Some gasped. Some shook their heads in disbelief. The Empress remained silent, her gaze fixed on her daughter. Elira turned to her mother, her eyes shining with quiet determination. "Please, Mother," she said. "Do not punish him. He is not a threat. He is something better than any soldier, any counselor, any Luthari I have ever known. He is human, yes, but he is strong, stronger than we can measure." The Empress's expression softened, though her voice remained careful. "You would risk the wrath of the council? For a human?" "Yes," Elira said without hesitation. "Because he showed me what courage truly is."
And because I
trust him." The council erupted in objection, but the princess did not falter. She held Elias's gaze, and he returned it steadily, silently telling her that he understood, and that he would always protect her, no matter the consequences. After what felt like an eternity, the Empress spoke. "Very well. The council will observe, but no harm will come to you yet. Understand this, human. Your actions have not gone unnoticed. You may have saved lives, but you have also challenged centuries of tradition. Choose your next step carefully." Elias inclined his head. "I understand, Your Majesty." Elira's eyes sparkled with relief. She squeezed his hand. "See, even your courage is recognized." Elias smiled faintly. "Not for me, for you." In that moment, the bonds between them grew stronger. A human and a princess. Two beings from worlds apart, connected by trust, courage, and something deeper than duty or expectation. The court might not accept it. The empire might resist. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of battle, the human and the princess shared something undeniable. Respect, admiration, and a spark of something that could not be ignored. And somewhere in the palace, the Empress watched, silently realizing that her daughter's heart might change the empire, and that this human, fragile and unassuming, might be the key to a new way of seeing the galaxy. The Vrak's threat had not ended. Scouts reported new fleets approaching the Luthari homeworld, faster and deadlier than before. The palace, still recovering from the last attack, trembled under the fear of what was coming. Inside the council chambers, voices clashed. "We cannot risk the human again," one advisor shouted.
He is untrained in Luthari combat techniques.
Another countered, "And yet he saved the princess. He protected our palace when even the finest warriors hesitated." Elias sat quietly in the infirmary, listening to the murmurs, his injuries already healing faster than anyone expected. He had been given time to rest, but he could not ignore the threat. Humans, he knew, did not wait for comfort when lives were at stake. Princess Elira entered, her silver hair flowing, her eyes bright and determined. "Elias," she said, "you must help again. The council may resist, but I will not. You will fight not because they allow it, but because it is right." Elias shook his head, trying to conceal the exhaustion etched on his face. "Your Highness, I am only one human. I cannot turn back an entire fleet alone. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. You do not fight alone. You fight with me, with my soldiers, and with the people who believe in you. You have already shown them what courage looks like. Her words struck him in a way that no battle had. Humans were taught to fight, yes, but often they fought alone. Here in this alien empire, someone saw his courage and trusted him for it. That evening, the Empress came to the infirmary herself. Her silver blue eyes studied Elias closely. You have risked your life for my daughter. You have broken tradition, challenged my counsel, and faced the enemy without fear. Why? Elias met her gaze calmly. Because it is the right thing to do, Your Majesty. Because protecting life is stronger than following rules. Because I promised her I would not let harm come to her. And promises we humans do not take lightly. Sarath's expression softened, though her voice remained steady. You speak boldly for a human. I speak only truth, he replied. The princess watched the exchange, her heart swelling with pride and fear. No one had ever defended her heart this way. No one had risked everything for her with such honesty. Mother, Alira said, stepping forward, he is not just a human. He is brave, loyal, and honorable. He saved lives that no one else could have saved. He has earned his place here, not because of rules, not because of rank, but because he is worthy. The Empress turned to her daughter, studying her with a mixture of caution and curiosity. You would defy centuries of tradition for him? Yes, Alira said, her voice steady. Because he has shown me what it means to care, to risk, to fight for others. I want him here, with me. Not as a guest, not as a curiosity, as someone I trust with my life. The Empress's silence was long. Courtiers watched in shock as the princess openly defied protocol. Some whispered that the empire itself might change if the Empress allowed her daughter's choice. Finally, Sarath spoke, her voice quiet but commanding. Very well. You may fight, but understand this, and the galaxy will watch, and so will history. Every action you take will be judged. Do not falter, Elias bowed. I will not falter, Your Majesty. Not for you, not for the council, not for anyone. Only for her. Alira's eyes filled with tears. She had never felt so certain. She took his hand, squeezing it tightly. And I will stand with you, she said. As the fleet approached the Luthari homeworld, Elias and Alira moved together through the command halls. His human instincts guided him. Her knowledge of the Empire and its defenses gave them strength. Together they planned, fought, and inspired the soldiers around them. In the chaos of war, the bond between human and princess became undeniable. Soldiers whispered in awe, realizing that courage could come from unexpected places. Some of the finest Luthari warriors had fought bravely. Yes, but none had inspired loyalty, hope, and fearlessness in others like Elias. And in the quiet moments between battles, when Alira looked at him, she knew she had made the right choice. Not because tradition allowed it, not because the council approved, but because she saw truth in him, a human, a princess. Two worlds colliding, united by courage, loyalty, and the unshakable belief that one life, one act of bravery, could change the course of the stars. The Vrax fleet loomed over the Luthari homeworld like a storm ready to crush everything below. The palace, still scarred from previous attacks, shone dimly against the blackness of space, its defenses straining to hold. The council had deployed their finest fleets, yet fear rippled through every officer and soldier. Elias Ward stood on the bridge of a command ship, flanked by Luthari officers and the princess herself. His uniform was patched and blood-stained, his body still recovering from the last battle, but his eyes burned with calm determination. He did not look like a soldier, yet in his presence even the most elite Luthari warriors felt inspired. Princess Alira leaned toward him, her silver eyes filled with concern. Elias, are you certain you can lead this? He gave a small, reassuring smile. I don't need to be certain. I just need to do what must be done, and you will stand with me. That is enough. The Empress Sarath watched from the throne room, a silent observer of the preparations. Her daughter's insistence on fighting alongside a human challenged every tradition she had upheld. Yet as she observed Elias, she saw something she could not deny, a courage and clarity that no Luthari, no matter how skilled, had displayed. The Vrax attack began without warning. Massive warships erupted into the starfield, firing deadly energy streams, Shields flared and faltered, explosions shook the palace orbitals, and alarms screamed across every channel. Elias moved quickly, issuing orders, his strategy precise, his calm presence steadying panicked crews. He directed the defense, moving between consoles, analyzing weaknesses and anticipating the Vrax's moves. Soldiers and pilots responded to his command without hesitation, inspired by a human who refused to show fear. Illyra stood beside him, coordinating the fleet from her vantage point. Her voice rang out with authority she had never felt before, yet it was Elias who gave her courage. They worked together, human and princess, bridging the gap between species, instinct and royalty, strategy and intuition. One Vrax cruiser broke through the outer shield, heading straight for the city. Without thinking, Elias grabbed a smaller fighter and piloted it toward the threat. Illyra followed from the command tower, giving him targeting coordinates. He dodged enemy fire, weaving through the chaos, finally striking the cruiser's weak point. The explosion rocked the space around them, and for a moment silence filled the bridge. Then the fleet cheered. Illyra rushed to him when he returned, her silver eyes wide with relief and awe. "You did it! You saved the city!" He smiled faintly, his body trembling from exhaustion. "We did it, together." The Empress entered shortly after, her long robes flowing as she approached the two. Her eyes softened, but her voice was still firm. "You have exceeded every expectation, human. You have fought not for glory, not for reward, but because it is right. My daughter's life, my empire, all have been protected by your courage." Elias inclined his head. "I did what anyone would do for someone they care about, your majesty." The Empress's lips curved slightly. "Care isn't a powerful force. I see now why my daughter chose you." Illyra took his hand, holding it tightly. "See? Even my mother understands." Elias glanced at the Empress, his voice quiet but firm. "I do not fight for recognition, only for what is just. If that earns respect, then I am honored." The Empress nodded slowly. She had watched countless warriors, generals, and diplomats. Many had sought power. Many had fought for victory. Few had risked their lives for someone else without expectation, without ambition, without selfishness. Elias had done all that and more. The council, observing from behind, whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Some bowed subtly in acknowledgement. A human, they realized, had shown them something no Luthari had ever demonstrated. Courage born of heart, loyalty born of choice, strength born of survival. Illyra leaned close to Elias. "You see? You are not just a human. You are extraordinary." He smiled, a faint, tired curve of his lips. "No, I'm just a man. But for you, I will always try to be enough." The Empress placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Perhaps it is time the Empire learns that greatness can come in forms we never expect." And in that moment, human and princess stood side by side. Not as alien and outsider, but as equals, united by trust, courage, and the undeniable truth that even the smallest among us can change the fate of worlds. The stars outside shone brighter that night, reflecting not just light but hope. Hope that courage and compassion could rewrite the laws of the galaxy. The galaxy was quiet after the storm. The Vrax fleet had retreated, defeated not just by technology but by courage and unity that no one had expected. The Luthari homeworld, though scarred, had survived. And at the heart of it all stood a human, Elias Ward, and a princess, Illyra, who had chosen him. The palace was still in recovery. Crystals were repaired, corridors rebuilt, and soldiers returned to duty. Yet the court's whispers had changed. They no longer questioned the human's presence. They questioned themselves, their assumptions, and the very traditions they had once held above all. Elias walked through the palace gardens, his hand lightly touching the crystal petals that glimmered under twin moons. Beside him, Illyra moved gracefully, her silver eyes fixed on him. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. "Do you ever regret coming here?" she asked. He shook his head. "Never. Not for a single moment. Even when my world fell, even when my people were lost, I knew if I survived I would find a purpose. And I did." Illyra looked at him, her heart swelling. She had seen him fight, protect, inspire, and endure. She had watched him risk everything for her, for people who had once doubted him. And still he remained humble, steady, human. "Perfectly human, mother," she whispered, her voice carrying through the quiet gardens. Empress Serath appeared from the palace corridors, her robe shimmering like silver mist. She had come not as an empress commanding her daughter, but as a mother who had watched and understood. "You have chosen him," the empress said softly. "Despite everything, despite tradition, despite what the council might say, you have chosen a human." Elira nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, mother. Because he showed me what courage, loyalty, and love truly mean. I want him. I want him with me." Sarath studied Elias, who bowed respectfully. Her eyes softened as she saw the truth of him. Every scar, every bruise, every exhausted but determined expression spoke louder than words. "You have done more than I expected," she said quietly. "You have not only protected my daughter and my world, you have reminded me that strength is not only in perfection or lineage or glory. Strength can be heart, humanity, and courage. You have earned your place here." Elias's eyes widened slightly. He had not expected acceptance, not fully, yet here it was. Recognition from the one who ruled the stars in this empire. Elira stepped closer, taking his